This is Carl Wilkins talking to an audience at the US Holocaust Memorial Museum. This is Carl Wilkins 20 years ago. He was a Christian missionary living in Kigali with his wife, 3 small children, a young Tutsi woman who worked at his home, and a male night security guard.
And the embassy had said no Rwandans in the vehicles. Many from Europe were flying out, but the Americans, Canadians were driving out. No Rwandans. And so how are we going to leave these people, knowing that pretty much guaranteed if we left them, they would be killed?
Carl's wife, Teresa, and their 3 children left with the convoys. Carl stayed to protect the 2 Tutsis who worked there. He then ventured through armed checkpoints, the sound of gunfire, and the scenes of massacre to the Gisimba orphanage.
It was just an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, and yet you would have these little victories, so to speak. You'd get a truckload of water to the orphanage, and the kids would all come there with a little metal cup, and there was this sense of success. But so it was an interesting mixture, I guess you could say, of overwhelming horrors, and yet feeling like, okay, for this day, this spot, we are able to make a difference.
On one occasion, the 400 or so in the orphanage were surrounded by more than 50 armed militiamen who said they would kill those inside if they stayed. Carl went to the office of a colonel he knew for help when he saw the Prime Minister, Jean Kambanda.
Like, wait, how do you ask somebody who's in charge of the genocide to stop a massacre? And so some very illogical, bizarre events often came together.
Kambanda assured Wilkins that the orphanage would be protected. Kambanda later pled guilty to committing genocide at the International Criminal Court. Wilkins went on to save other orphans, risking his life on many occasions to do so.
On many counts, that worked to my advantage in terms of a culture of respect and value of foreigners. On a few counts, it didn't, in that I stood out. They threatened to kidnap me at different times. Rumors were going around, and so that in having a certain amount of privilege had its downside as well.
Carl Wilkins and his wife Teresa spent a year and a half in Rwanda after the genocide to assist with the rebuilding process. 20 years on, some will say this is an old news story.
No, Rwanda, I've been back there 9 times in the last 5 years, and every time I go back, there's more and more stories. Not only stories about 1994, horrible stories, but also courageous stories. Stories now of forgiveness. There's so many in Rwanda. I mean, it's not perfect, tons of challenges still, but so many in Rwanda have decided they will not be defined by what was taken from them.
20 years on, they travel permanently across the world to relay their experiences and explain to audiences how Rwandans have found ways to rebuild their lives. Daniel Ryntjes, CCTV, Washington.